Hey guys, I promised you guys 2 new videos, and it's like 11:45 at night, and I procrastinate a lot, and this is my new video. Um, the only thing that I could really think of to talk about for this video, though, was about the Jeff Hardy and Sting, I guess, debacle. That's probably the best word for it, and all the stuff that happened there. Now, for those of you who do or do not know, this is actually TNA news, believe it or not. And as you guys know, I'm not a huge TNA fan at all. So for me to talk about this is actually kind of odd, I guess, you know? I mean, I'm a WWE guy. I mean, I always have been. I watched TNA for like a year and a half straight, and then I decided, to me it's too much of a knockoff of WWE. And you know, I'll watch an occasional episode of TNA, but to me it's like, I've always been on the fence. But anyway, this video is going to talk about Jeff Hardy and Sting and their match at the pay-per-view. I believe it was Turning Point. I'm not quite sure. Like I said, I don't really watch TNA. Now, for those of you who do not know what happened, this is the situation. Sting was going to set to face Jeff Hardy, who, well, it was for the title, I believe. And Jeff Hardy showed up, and he was pretty out of it. Don't know if it was drugs, don't know if it was alcohol, don't know if he was just being weird, who knows. But Sting took huge note of that. And Sting is a 20-plus year veteran, one of, really, the only guy who never really worked for Vince McMahon when WCW was bought out by WWE. So, he basically said, okay, Jeff, you gotta be 100%. And it looked like Jeff just wasn't 100%. Sting wasn't having it, and he barked up a huge storm against TNA management. Now, for that, TNA also got worried about Jeff Hardy's actual in-ring status, and they weren't sure if he was even able to compete at one point in the match. So they, well, basically just cut him loose and was like, okay, we're giving you 90 seconds, it's going to be a few punches, Sting's going to finish you off, and that's the match. And that's your main event for TNA. I'm going to say Turning Point. I'm not sure what the name of the pay-per-view was. Like I said, I'm not an avid TNA fan. Now, my initial thoughts was, that's not really right of TNA to do that because they don't know or anything. And for those of you who may or may not know, I am a huge Jeff Hardy fan. I always have been, and I probably always will be. The guy is one hell of a wrestler, and no one can dispute that. I'm not saying because he's a high flyer. There's a lot of high flyers that aren't even good. I mean, that's just how it is. But with Jeff Hardy, he's one of the few that I can actually say who's a high-flying wrestler, but he's a phenomenal high-flying wrestler. Now, when this whole thing went on, I was skeptical and I was rooting in favor of Jeff Hardy, but that's my bias, you know? I didn't want to, but it just happened. But I think at the end of the day, TNA did the right move. And that it's not a matter of who you're going to trust, a 20-year veteran or a 15-year veteran who has had a history of reckless behavior. It wasn't like that for TNA. What the case was that they obviously had to have taken note of Jeff Hardy's condition if they decided not to go through with it. And I'm pretty sure that's what they did here. Now, do I blame them? No. If that was WWE, they probably would have made up some kind of storyline to where he wouldn't even compete. So for Jeff to be out there for 90 seconds, he got lucky, and he should realize that. I think that all in all, though, Jeff Hardy's ongoing drug trial, this thing is taking forever. You know, just find him guilty or not and move on. I'll bring you up to speed. For those of you who may or may not know, last year, September 11th, 2010, police received a tip that Jeff Hardy had a bunch of drugs in his house. Next thing you know, he got arrested for drug trafficking. And it killed me on the inside because Jeff Hardy's my all-time favorite wrestler. And that happened, well, that pretty much happened, you know, he was in WWE till for the good part of 2010. And, well, not for the good part, maybe to like February, March, I believe, was his final match in WWE. And basically, they used that, when that happened later in the year, they basically used that as leverage, and CM Punk cut a huge promo on Jeff Hardy. That's when he was so straight edge, and he basically just said stuff like, Jeff Hardy's proving my point, he's a charismatic enabler, and all that, CM Punk stuff. Now, Jeff Hardy enraged at that because WWE used his drug trafficking charges pretty much against him. He went to TNA to prove a point when they went on their live edition. Earlier this year, I believe, in January. I could be wrong, but I'm way wrong. I'm getting the dates mixed up. It was late last year, basically, and WWE wasn't really shocked. I think they kind of knew, but I think at the same time, they didn't really know what to say or even expect. And here you go, he has him in TNA. Next thing you know, Matt Hardy gets fired. He's in TNA. So now you have both the Hardys. That was a huge mistake on WWE's fault. But anyway, back to the whole Sting and Jeff Hardy situation. Like I said, I can't blame TNA. However, I kind of can. Now, obviously, I can't blame them for the state of Jeff Hardy. That's not their fault. What I can blame them for, though, is actually having him out there. If I was a wrestling promoter, okay, I would not ever put a guy out there who appears backstage like he's tumbling over. If he looks even the slightest of it, no, you're not wrestling. There's so many issues that's wrong with that. How did TNA not know that? What happens if Jeff Hardy injures Sting and could even end his career because he's so out of it? What happens if, I don't know, what happens if he shows up, he gets drunk, and he starts a fan altercation? Whatever the case is, there's so many variables that TNA just did not look over. Now, me personally, I don't understand that. Like I said, if that was WWE, they would never have done any of that. Personally, they would just moved on. They would have filled someone else in. Like, ECW, December to Dismember, I believe. Sabu was supposed to be in the main event, which was a 6-man Extreme Rules Elimination Chamber match. But due to his backstage attitude or something, they wrote him off and put Test in, I believe. Obviously it's WWE and TNA a comparison there, but bottom line, you don't do that. If someone shows up like they're half out of it, why book them? They did the same thing in WCW did with Scott Hall. He was half drunk, and they basically still threw him out there. What kind of sense is that? It's cool that the show must go on and you have that attitude, and it does go on. But not in that way. Put someone else in their spot. And like I said, I'm not a wrestling promoter. I'm not a wrestling booker or anything. I'm a fan. I'm sure maybe if I saw it at their perspective, maybe I would think a little differently. But from where I'm sitting, that's the wrong call. And, that's why WWE, they're always careful with that. And that's why they busted down so much with their drug searches, because of things like this. They don't want guys appearing half drugged out of their minds. They don't need that. TNA doesn't either. If they want to move on, here's what TNA does. They move away from this, and they promote the stars that need to get over. Beer Money, they should be at the complete top. Not just in the tag team division, but in singles competitions. Redo the X division. Do what you gotta do. But don't be like WWE. And that's why Jeff Hardy's doing this, because he knows he can get away with in TNA as opposed to WWE. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.